Hello and welcome to the Supernatural track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about Supernatural's funniest episodes. We're going to have a lot to say, but before we start saying it, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a fan since season 3. I'm a fanfic writer. All my fanfics on AO3 under Fire Sign 10, and I can't wait to talk about what's funny.
Great. Lynn?
Hi, I'm Dr. Lynn Zubernis. I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor at Westchester University, and I study fandom, so I write a lot of books about fandom and a lot of books about Supernatural. The most recent 2 books were written with the actors and the fans of Supernatural. There'll be Peace When You Are Done, about the legacy that the show leaves for all of us, and Family Don't End with Blood, which are a bunch of essays about what the show has meant to its fans and its cast and how it's changed their lives, some of whom are in this Zoom.
Awesome. Elektra?
I'm Elektra. I'm a writer and editor. This is my executive assistant, Oscar. And I've been watching Supernatural since the very first episode aired.
Great. Janet?
Hi, I'm Janet Walden-West, and aside from being a Supernatural fan from the first episode too, I also write urban fantasy and paranormal romance, and the stories have a lot of supernatural in them. You can find the influence.
Oh, it is definitely a show that launched a lot of spin-offs. Lola?
I'm Lola Lariscy. I'm a writer, and I've been a fan of Supernatural since the beginning because I just always watched the CW. So all it had to be was on the CW, and I was pretty much going to watch it. But I loved it, and I still do. That's it.
Okay. Laurena?
Hi, I'm Laurena Aker for Supernatural. I am the co-editor of the Winchester Family Business website, which is the largest fan website dedicated to Supernatural. I have chapters in Lynn's book, Family Don't End with Blood, and a second book, Supernatural Politics. And then for a different fandom, for Twilight, I am the editor of the book Fan Phenomenon, a Twilight Saga.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance, but all the modern worlds, the characters Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I wrote a chapter for There'll Be Peace When You Are Done, and I'm a staff columnist for the Winchester Family Business, as well as running the Supernatural TFWNC group on Facebook. So, Supernatural's funniest episodes. Let's just kind of start and go around and do one episode a person, and then we'll keep going around. So, Lynn, start us off.
Oh, I'm so glad I get to start off because A, I don't have a list. And B, everybody is going to say the French mistake, but now I get to say the French mistake first. Well, maybe everybody isn't, but for me, that is absolutely the funniest episode, especially the bad acting scene. If I ever really am feeling down and I need something that will bulletproof make me laugh, I don't know how many times I've seen that scene, but I still cannot watch that bad acting scene without just like fall on the floor, like LOL kind of laughing. I love that episode and that scene.
And it has changed the way I see alpacas forever. So, Elektra.
I don't think that Supernatural started to even dare to try to be funny beyond a few things here and there, a sentence or two, until season 3, when they popped up with Mystery Spot, which is one of my favorite ones for bits of funny. I mean, for as funny as you can get for Dean consistently getting killed every 3 or 4 minutes, there he was getting mowed down again, but in a funny way.
Only in Supernatural would that rank as one of the funniest episodes, but you're absolutely right. Janet.
Oh, my favorite is Bad Day at Blackrock. There's so many good things to pick from in that one. And it is a toss up between when Sammy is sitting there in the hotel room, not supposed to move so that he doesn't get in more trouble. And then the air conditioner's on fire. And then his jacket is on fire. And it just goes downhill from there. But it is also the one where Dean is facing off with the killer. And all he has is the pencil and he tosses it and it lodges right in the gun barrel. And I'm Batman.
Which, turns out to be one of Supernatural's prophetic moments, along with this is Walker. He's a Texas Ranger. Little did we know. Lola.
Okay, I got notes. I rewatched, hold on, The Real Ghostbusters, season 5, episode 9. This is the one where Becky tricks them to coming to the Supernatural convention. And I loved it so much. There's so many funny lines. When they're all the fans are in the room and Fritz, the German guy, is criticizing, and Becky runs out and says, "Fritz, if you don't like the books, don't read them." And Chuck, Becky, when she's trying to let Sam down easily because she decides she likes Chuck after all, she says, "Like a monkey on the sun, it was too hot to live." I just loved it. And the growly voices, the two guys who are pretending to be Dean and Sam, they're LARPing, and girls talk like this all the time. So it's just so many hilarious moments. And I think they missed an opportunity in this episode, because at the end Chuck has to vape a little bit because they're trying to keep all the fans in so that they don't get killed by the monsters, the ghost. And he has to just keep them occupied for several hours. They should have had him do an impromptu band.
That's true.
They totally missed that opportunity. So I'm gonna have to write them and talk about that. I mean, it was like what, 10
That's what
years
fan
ago?
fiction is for. Yes.
Yeah, that's what fan fiction is for. So someone get on it.
That's right.
Well, the continuing joke through that episode where Sam and Dean had to keep, well, we're LARPing Sam and Dean, so you can be Bobby and Rufus. Was just such a great joke to keep going there. No, wait, we want to be Sam and Dean.
We are Sam and Dean.
No, you're not.
It's like, it's a game, man. Huh?
And telling Chuck, so you can go ahead and continue writing. Really? No, we'll hunt you down and kill you.
We have guns. I want more books. They're about to introduce angels. I say let's get more books.
Laurena, how about you?
I'm going to take another obvious one, changing channels. That's pretty obvious, and it has to be on the first list for sure. I mean, every scenario, the game show, the Sam as the car, every single thing that they went into, the doctor, sexy, you're just cracking up the whole time. And at first time, if anybody can remember back to the first time they saw it, you're like, what is happening here? And it takes you a while, just like it took Sam and Dean a while to figure out what was going on. But that is just so well done that, it's a classic. Funny or not, it's just a classic.
And those Laverne and Shirley callbacks for those old enough to remember Laverne and Shirley. I mean, there was a lot there.
I went back and looked just to make sure, and that was a Jeremy Carver masterpiece. And he was my favorite writer when I started watching for a long time. And I just thought, wow, that came from Jeremy. That's a feather in his cap.
I think he did Real Ghostbusters, because I remember seeing his name and I rewatched that today. It's possible.
Yeah, I'm going to toss out Scooby Natural just because it brings together two things that I love a great deal, and that's Scooby-Doo and Supernatural. And I thought that they did it so well and had respect for the history of both shows. And I just really loved that episode, but it had a lot of wonderful moments. You know, I used to lead armies, and now I'm stuck with a talking dog and a Philistine. And, you know, just so many moments, as well as so many classic Scooby moments, like the running between doors and the popping out of the jars, and a musical interlude as they run away. You know, if you liked both shows, it was just kind of perfect. Carol.
I really loved Plucky Penny Whistle. It was, you know, the way the people were getting killed, that we have the unicorn horn, and then it was farting rainbows as it runs away. And it had a lot of great things like that. And you can't beat the classic scene where the one man has died in the ball pit, and Dean makes Sam say the ball washing machine several times until Sam realizes it and gives him the bitch face. But there was a lot of great, you know, Dean's lusting after the giant Slinky, and, you know, the snarky kids. And it was a pretty funny episode for me. I really liked it. The glitter.
And those years taking small children to Chuck E. Cheese, we have no problem believing that there probably was a satanic cult in the basement. I mean, really, it just fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there,
You
done
really,
that.
you really think those were animatronic bears? They were possessed.
Yeah, been there, done that, got the Slinky.
Mm.
All right, round two. Elektra.
Hero's journey, where their luck has finally run out, and Sam cannot even boil up a bowl of pasta without it turning into an absolute disaster, much less go to help out Garth and figure out how to deal with underground fighting monsters. And, you know, and also bonus points for Garth comes to the rescue.
With C4.
Well, Hunter's best friend.
Nice.
Or Hunter's little helper.
Hunter's little helper, yeah. Lola.
I already went. Are we starting over?
Yeah, we're on round two.
Okay, so I still have notes. Hold on. It was a Garth and Becky day for me. So let me see. Oh, don't freeze on me, notes. Don't freeze. All right, the one where they have to get drunk to see the Japanese spirit.
Party on Garth.
Yeah, party on Garth. And I love the beginning where Garth is, well, first of all, he's being Top Gun. And he's so sure that he got the answer because he burned Jenny whatever's bones. And you see him like the explosion when he's he set the grave on fire, and he's slow walking away, and he's got his sunglasses on, and he flips his jacket over his shoulder, and it's just so cool. It's just hilarious because I love him so much, but he's so goofy, and him acting cool, it's just hilarious. And
actor modeled for Prada, so go figure.
He did. And I mean he's very unusual looking. I love him to death. He's great. He's not what you think when you think male model. He's got a very unique look, and I think that's probably what they were looking for when they hired him to be a model. But he's so good at being goofy, just a goofball. And towards the end, there's a moment where I think it's either Sam or Dean gets in a cab. I think it's Sam. He's like, hurry. And the cab driver is just as cool as he can be. He's like, I like to go slowly. And you're like, no, get on it. So, and Mr. Fizzles, huh?
And Mr. Fizzles, yes.
Mr. Fizzles may be the best ever. I want more.
I was going to say, if you want male modeling sons of bitches, you already have Jensen and Jared. So
that's right. And Mr. Fizzles.
And Mr. Fizzles.
Because he knows when you're a liar.
Janet.
Let's see. I also love Yellow Fever. There's so much in that episode that's hilarious. And I know everyone loves, opening the lockers and there's the cat. But my favorite part is, they're in the car and it's like, okay, we need to go take care of this. And Dean is just like, full stop. Normal people run away from monsters. We're running towards them. Who runs towards monsters? Crazy people. We're crazy people. his speech was just so perfect. And it's like, you look at it as an outsider, it's like, yeah, he has a point.
Laurena.
Kind of in this, I was just going to say the scene that I liked in Yellow Fever a lot was the running away from the dog, and keeping with that theme, Dog Dean Afternoon.
Yes.
That cracks me up. It is so well done. And my favorite is the tossing the wad of paper into the garbage can, and Sam gets it out and puts it back, or Dean takes it out and puts it back, and Sam tosses it, and Dean takes back and forth fetch until Sam's finally going, what are you doing? It is the whole thing, talking to the pigeons, just how Jensen stays serious when he's having conversations with the dogs in the kennel, and with his co-star, that he's talking to. The whole thing is just brilliant, really funny.
Supernatural does some of its best humor when it's mixed with pathos. And I think one of the, and horror, so it's this kind of, am I laughing or screaming or crying? I'm kind of doing all three at the same time. And there were so many funny moments in Regarding Dean, which is the memory loss episode. And yet, I choke up every time I cry. And yet the whole, so bouncy. And do we have to change him back? And the no posted on the grenade launcher, or brother, which, there's so many great lines in an episode that is otherwise kind of traumatizing. And Jensen moves between the comedy and the feelings so seamlessly, and so do the others. Ruth and Jared do so well with that, but there are some definitely funny moments in an episode where you wouldn't be looking for the humor. Carol?
Weekend at Bobby's. I just love Bobby's moment in the sun there, but the chaos that is his life, where you've got the phone bank, we've got the new neighbor who is trying to make nice with him and everything, and he's just like partially dumbfounded, like what, and partially like he has to get her out of there because there's bodies to be buried and stuff, and Rufus and the digging machine, and it's one thing after another with him, and the peach cobbler that he never gets to eat. Even the wood chipper is hilarious. Just, you would think, how can a wood chipper be funny? But it's hilarious. And then even that final scene where he tells Sam and Dean off is actually kind of funny, because we never get to see Bobby do something like that, where he like rips them a new one. But I just thought, Jim Beaver, it just has such a deft touch, and when he can just be like moseying around his house there, and there's always just so much going on, and I really, really enjoyed that one. That one always makes me chuckle a lot.
Well,
You've got bodies in the basement. Well, I've got bodies in the yard too.
Well, what do hunters argue about when they sit around chatting? How many times you have to stab something with a blessed blade in order for them to actually stay dead?
Well, and I loved the look on Dean and Sam's face when Bobby's ripping him a new one, because they knew how to deal with John. But here it's been a long time, and you've got badass hunters, Dean and Sam, getting chewed out like little kids. And they're not
like puppies. They're like, ooh.
Yeah, what to do with it? Because this is Bobby. It was great.
Do I sound like I'm done?
Lynn, how about you?
It's striking me, like, as I listen to everybody's answers, there are very few Supernatural episodes that don't have at least some humor in them. Like, sometimes it's not a funny episode, and yet there's one or two scenes in it that are just unbelievably funny. It's so good at interweaving the humor with all of the other emotions. And secondly, everybody they cast in that damn show seems to be able to run the gamut, you know, they can do the heartbreaking, they can do the badass, they can do the humor. I mean, it's just very striking how talented they all are. But anyway, I was gonna say one of the early ones that it doesn't have that kind of slapstick humor. It's got kind of more subtle humor, but Hollywood Babylon, I remember watching it the first time and thinking, oh, this is like a different kind of episode that they're doing. And I just really appreciated the kind of more subtle humor that was in it. Yeah, and the sort of meta humor that was in it. It was the first time I was like, oh, they are talking to us. They are lampooning fans. They're lampooning the business. There's all these little subtle digs. There's the point where Sam and Dean are on the Warner Brothers tram ride and they start talking about Gilmore Girls, and Jared, I don't even think he has any lines, but his face is just priceless, like, oh shit, oh darn, let me get off this tram. I just, you know, there were little moments in that one that were just really, really funny.
Well, and Jensen keeps eating the food off the craft cart, and he embraces being a PA. And I think Sam asks, what's a PA? And Jensen says, I think it's something like a slave, which,
Yeah.
you know, and in joke. Yeah, very good. All right, and it's on round 3. Janet?
One of my other favorites is when Dean and Sam go back to high school and Dean is the gym coach. Jensen in those knee-high socks and the red shorts and that headband. But the fact that he loved it so much too, you know, he's like, all right, we're going to play this game, dodgeball. And the kids are like, no, it's dangerous. And he just like tosses it and knocks the kid down. You can tell, yeah, he enjoyed his time there.
Yeah, the whistle makes me their god.
Their
Yeah.
God, yeah.
That would be a good profession for him if he weren't a hunter. I could see that.
Lola, how about you?
All right, so I'm going to talk about a scene in a show. I've been rewatching the alternate universe ones. I don't want to bring anyone down, but that was when my mom was sick. So a lot of them, they didn't stick in my head because I was always helping my mom. So I've been rewatching them. And there is a scene that cracked me up. It is in season 13, episode 14, called Good Intentions. They're over in the alternate universe. I think they're in the alternate universe. Yeah, something. Anyways, and they're being hoodwinked by Donatello. They're trying to make some kind of potion, and he sent them on a wild goose chase. And one of the things he said they needed were Canaanite warriors or something. So they summon these Canaanite warriors, and the Canaanite warriors start arguing, which is such a perfect thing. It's so hilarious because they're being all commanding and, you know, you will fight me and all this stuff. And the first one says, he who does this. And then the other one says, or she. Sorry about my dogs. And then the other one gets mad and says, why do you always have to interrupt me? And they start arguing, which is hilarious because they're supposed to be scary, but they're really just bickering. And then Dean just can't stop laughing because they're wearing loincloths, and he keeps making fun of their loincloths, which cracked me up. So that was a really funny scene and an otherwise pretty mirthless episode.
Well, and doesn't, it's the Gog and Magog episode, and one of them says something like, I'll fight the pretty one, and the other one says, oh, they're both pretty, or something like that.
That cracked me up too. I love there are always these little like homoerotic things in it. And I love that because I like it when straight men's perceptions are, challenged. And so you always see how uncomfortable Dean gets. And I love it. I'm like, let's make them uncomfortable. Let's see what we can do. I love it.
Well, you can't spell subtext without sex.
You are right about that.
Laurena, how about you?
Which one should I pick? Clap your hands if you believe. Fight the fairies. I think I've had a close encounters at the third kind. Oh my God, that cracks me up. And then when
Is that a butt
Dean walks in on Sam with the hippie girl, and Sam is just, oh, hey Dean, how you doing? Can you give us a minute? Oh, I'm just cracking up through that whole thing. But running through the corn with, empathy, Sam, empathy, that piece is just so good. But everything in that is hilarious. So that was a very
The Leprechaun. The
yeah,
Leprechaun is so good. I'm
It was a very
blanking on his name, but he's fantastic.
Robert Picardo in real
Yes.
life.
Yes, thank you. And yeah,
From Star
Yeah.
Trek.
From Star Trek.
right.
He was also in Stargate. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that was they took a risk with that one, but they did it brilliantly. They carried it off, and it didn't go to the absurd. You stay in the fairy in the microwave. Oh my gosh. That is one of those scenes that makes me laugh no matter how many times I see it. So that's a classic.
Yeah, I'm going to say A Very Supernatural Christmas. And it's another one of those melancholy but funny. Sam hangs fishing bobbers and air fresheners on the tree that he probably stole. Them not getting the words right to Silent Night when they go to visit Saint Nicotine, the crappy Santa. Dean managing to set Sam up with the little elf girl about, no, we're just here to watch. Thanks for that. And yet it's all about Dean running out of time and Last Christmas and all that, and yet there manages to be so much to laugh about, including that spit take on the eggnog when Jared really did lace the eggnog with real liquor, and they kept it. And Jensen's face is just precious, as always. Carol.
I'm going to go with Tall Tales. From the very beginning, where we see Sam and Dean bickering, as Bobby says, like an old married couple, and wrestling on the bed, and the pain in the ass guy who gets beamed up and probed from the aliens. And there's the kind of creepy thing where we have, the ghost girl killing the professor, but there's, so much funny, Richard Speight Jr. himself is just very humorous. And here he is snapping up beautiful girls and eating all this candy. And he gives Dean that big fantasy about, the blonde and the brunette on the big bed. And Dean's like, woohoo. And, but there was just so much funny. Oh, the great scene in the bar where Dean recounts it, that she's wearing this elegant black sheath and they're talking, about philosophy or whatever. And Sam's recounting of it is that, they're like blasted and she's like, oh, excuse me, I have to puke now. And just all of that. It was just hilarious. It was really, really good.
Lynn?
I'm going to pick another one of my favorite episodes, Fan Fiction, which is mostly a really nice sentimental episode, and I love it for the music and everything. But for a couple scenes in that one that are just really funny. In the beginning of it, just sort of Sam and Dean's reaction when they walk into that auditorium and they're confronted sort of with a musical of their lives, and they're just like, what the heck is going on here? I love that. And then their interactions with the two young women who are the writer and the director, just all these little, again, I love meta humor. Like, it is always going to take me down. So them just arguing back and forth about what the story should be or what the story could be or whose it is. I love all of that. And then the part that really gets me like literally laughing out loud is when they finally put on the production. And of course, the real, the goddess, the real monster is there and is throwing Dean across the stage, and they're still persevering and doing their thing. And then in the end, it explodes, and there's that one guy with the raincoat on, and everyone else is just soaked with monster guts, and they're like, yay. Yeah. That's one of my funniest scenes. I love that.
Elektra.
This one's only funny if you've seen the whole run and you've come back for your rewatch, but it needs to be mentioned. So I'm going to do it. Houses of the Holy from the second season, where there's a bunch of deaths and they track it down to a priest who's died, and he's, come back basically as a vengeful ghost, telling people they need to go get people. And that's all fine. The only funny bit from it is a short scene between Sam and Dean where they have this long discussion where Dean explains to Sam, nope, angels, they just do not exist. They're on my list as things that cannot be. And Sam is why, Sam is insisting there's as much lore about angels as other things, like there. And Dean's, nope, there's lore about unicorns too, but I don't believe in them. And angels just do not exist. And they go through this whole thing about it. And I don't know if the writers, when they wrote that, had any idea that like 2 seasons later, there would be Castiel and he would eat those words. But boy, in retrospect, that is a funny one.
Yeah, there's also, I don't remember whether it's that episode or another one where Dean just looks at Sam and goes, well, you can't kill God. And then fast forward 10 seasons, let's kill God. I mean, no, I don't think they saw any of that coming. Oh, well, new round. Lola, kick us off.
Okay. Well, I've been watching those kind of ghost hunter type shows since 2005, and I love them. So of course, Ghostbusters, right up my alley, because it's hilarious because they get the seriousness of it and all the equipment and everything, and just the audacity of the guys doing it. It's just they really get it, and it's so hilarious because, well, sometimes you want to laugh at that stuff because they are so self-serious in those ghost hunting type shows. And so I just love that they parody it.
I don't remember whether it's the first time we see the Ghostbusters or the second, but after 2 years now of everybody doing Zoom panels from home, when they're in the garage and they're having this very serious taping session, and then the guy's dad opens the garage door and it takes up the whole wall of their studio, and I'm going, yep, that's Zoom,
Yeah, you don't know where people are at until somebody opens the door and they're like, oh, okay.
I identify with that so much more after the last 2 years that we've had. Janet, how about you?
I enjoy that whole subtle humor thing too, especially where it is such a serious episode otherwise. And I think the first 2 or 3 seasons, when they were still really getting their legs under them and weren't quite willing to go, full out meta crazy. But one of my favorites is actually Red Sky, when they are dealing with Bella, and every time they turn around, she keeps getting the better of them. She's always one step ahead. And then finally, at the very end, everything has gone wrong, but they have vanquished what they need to, and they're standing there in the graveyard, and Dean's like, okay, well, fine. At least I have the lottery tickets out of this. And he starts patting his pockets, and Bella's driving by, waving them at him, and he's like, son of a bitch again. So that one has always stood out. It is just so hilarious watching someone else get the best of them.
I just love seeing Sam trying to deal with Gert.
Oh, yeah.
And
He's all over this handsome young man and everything, and it's like,
I think that's also the one where Bella has the Impala towed, and Dean asks if he can kill her, and Sam says,
Yes, not yet.
And the angry sex. After this is all over, we must
Don't
have angry
objectify
sex.
me. Yes. Laurena.
Hunteri Hiroishi. Can't even say it. Hunteri Hiroishi, the one with the cartoon, the person that can pull them into, that uses the cartoon world to rob banks and do crimes. And I grew up on Saturday morning cartoons, so to mix, you talked about Scooby before, to mix the cartoons with Supernatural, have the Anvil, have the Acme Supply Company, have the Roadrunner going through. But okay, Lynn, you're gonna have to help me again. BJ from MASH.
Mike
Who's that?
Farrell.
Yeah, Mike Farrell.
Mike Farrell, right. Oh my gosh, he was so perfect in that. Just the straight man who just didn't flinch when everything around him was hilarious. He was the anchor for the scene and kept it from going off the rails. So that one, I just thought the heart, the big circle, the target on the wall, and Dean going through it, and everything about that, stepping off the building and there's nothing below him, and then poof, down he goes. That one is one of my favorites for just the whole thing being funny, intended to be funny, and they succeeded.
Mhm. I loved It's a Terrible Life. I mean, Smith and Wesson and Dean worrying about a cleanse and his shakes, and Sam living up to every call center guy's dream, just bashing the phone finally. There was so much humor in that episode. And, once again, Sam and Dean did not come through the way the angels wanted them to. They wrote their own ending. And I just loved seeing them in that alternate universe. That was so much fun. Carol.
We're really good at this. When they vanquish Sanders. I'm going to go with Swap Meet. I just really enjoyed, seeing Sam wearing that nerdy hoodie and everything, and trying to figure out what this guy is doing. He's like, oh, you've been a very naughty boy, and stuff like that, and eating the toast and having, finding out he has gluten intolerance and stuff. But then the flip side being, the geeky boy who had swapped with him, relishing everything with Dean, like, oh man, even just the bun on this burger is fantastic, and the music, and he drinks his drink and he's like, oh, it's like tequila. I just thought there was a lot of great humor from both portrayals.
And the cougar that he goes home
oh
with.
my gosh, the cougar. And she comes out with the riding crop. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, and Jared did that so well and so awkwardly, that was fantastic. Lynn?
I'm gonna go with Monster Movie. I love Todd Stashwick. I think that he is just so incredibly talented and so funny. So even though in many ways that was a really sad episode, and I was really sad at the end for that monster, he really made me feel for that monster. But before that, he was just having so much fun, like his teeth into that role of Dracula. He was just so funny when he's on the little scooter driving around, and when he orders a pizza and the guy comes to bring the pizza, there's no garlic in it, is there? I mean, it was, yeah. Even just like when he had, what, Carol?
But wait, I have a coupon.
Yeah, and the accent, and even when he had, Dean strapped down and dressed him up as Hansel, just even the interaction between Todd and Jensen was just so hilarious. That episode was intended to be somewhat funny, but I think casting Todd Stashwick just elevated that to so much more funny than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah. Laurena, take us around again.
Just my imagination. It's one of my favorite episodes because the interaction between Sully and Sam is so tender and sweet and innocent. And to know that Sam, even as an adult, still needed someone that he could confide in. So it's such a beautiful episode. But the whole thing with the unicorns and the make-believe and the mermaid in the pool, and there's so many things that are just so the sparkles, oh my gosh, the sparkles all over the room, and wiping the blood on her face, and she just keeps going. that one is, it balances again, the humor against a very serious situation that Sam's considering, that he needs to go back and confront Satan, and it scares him so terribly, and yet they balance it at the completely opposite end with such a childlike interaction with imaginary creatures. That's a brilliant episode. I love it.
And I did an interview with Carrie Genzel, who was the mom in that, and she had actually gotten some of the glitter in her eye, but they had told her to do it in one take because the makeup would be hard to redo and you put the behind schedule. So she's doing that whole take with glitter in her eye and trying not to react. So yeah. I'm gonna say Baby. You know, it's a classic episode for so many reasons, but you got the green cooler, you've got the werepires, you've got the head on the windshield wipers, and the valet that takes the Impala out for a spin, and just so many things that were so funny in that episode. And it is such a classic episode, but there was really a lot of humor in that one. Carol.
Putting 911, because we get to see, we only met Donna very briefly when that previous episode. So here we get to see Donna like on her own turf, and we see poor Jody she doesn't want to be there like at all. So she's not only wrestling with not wanting to be there, she's got uber cheerful Donna trying to like give her lollipops and say, oh, let's go to these great seminars, and her little, accent and stuff. And just their whole interaction. And once again, like Laurena was even saying, I believe, about the darkness with the humor, because here Donna really finds out about monsters being real, and things like, there are some definite serious underpinnings. But on the other hand, we have this whole kind of, bubbly Donna, and, Jody shooting down the snarky ex and stuff. And just the force of Donna's personality is just, it was just great, and even at the end where she's like, wow, monsters are really real, but she bounces right back. She's like, okie dokie. Yeah. And I love that one.
Carol, the best line in there, what the cuss? Vampires? That has to be framed and put on a wall somewhere.
Yeah, her whole dialogue is just, and Brianna just delivers it so well. It's great. And then Jody plays, Kim's playing off it with her much drier, more acerbic, personality, and yet, they end up being able to mesh and everything. It's a great episode.
Every time I try to do a Minnesota accent, I'm channeling her. And I hear it in my head. I'm like, it's perfect in my head, but then I try to say it and I'm like, oh no.
She nailed it though.
You got it.
We've mentioned the other Ghostbusters episode, the one that was done with sort of with them holding their own cameras. I thought that made it really funny, just because it allowed it to be Sam and Dean, a little bit of Jared and Jensen, just sort of, using their own cameras and making their own little, subtitled like curse words and what they really thought of the Ghostbusters. I like the way that's done, the back and forth there. I think that was I always like episodes that are a little bit different, that are innovative in some way. And I think doing it that way gave it a completely different feel and brought in, again, like a different type of humor, not the kind of like, I'm laughing so hard I'm falling over. But it was just humorous the way it was done. I thought it was well done.
Okay. Elektra.
99 Problems. After all of the episodes where they have to explain to people and give them the talk, here was one where you see starts right away with Sam and Dean riding in, and they're being chased by demons, and they're at a dead end, and suddenly a bunch of guys in a truck ride up and spray the demons with holy water and start spouting off an exorcism in Enochian. You don't see that every day. And suddenly there's a whole town that's completely aware that there are demons and it's the apocalypse and everybody knows. And it just, everything is upside down. And as they're trying to figure it out, it's just one thing after another just doesn't make sense. And a lot of it's funny as hell because they're just so confused by it.
Okay.
It has
Jan?
its moments.
Yeah. Janet?
Early on, I've gone blank on the episode, but when Sam and Dean are first discovering the roadhouse and Joe and Ellen, and by this point, you know, they're two badass hunters. We know that they've been through all of these situations and faced down demons. And he's in there talking to Joe, and Ellen just looks at him. And when they're getting ready to leave, Joe's like, "Are you afraid of my mom?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm afraid of your mom."
I think so.
I am too, but I love her.
Lola?
Well, I'm going back to the Becky well. Now this one, it's not as hilarious as the real Ghostbusters one, but it's kind of cringingly funny. It's Time for a Wedding, season 7, episode 8. She tricks Sam into falling in love with her. And it opens, you know, they're in Las Vegas, and Dean gets a call to come real quick, something's going on. And he walks into Little Chapel of Love, whatever, you know, chapel in Las Vegas. And I've never been in one of those. I've been to Las Vegas, but I've never been in the chapel. But that's exactly what I thought it would be like. It's tiny. It looks like you stepped into a wedding cake. And they're playing There Goes the Bride. And it's like tinkly on a keyboard, like a really bad Casio keyboard. And talk about innovative. The opening titles, you see the cake, it's a multi-layer black and white cake, and it explodes into the supernatural theme. And it's just hilarious. And just Becky being Becky, she's so hilarious. I mean, I would kill her in real life. I would be like, "You need to get away from me, you are a freak." And I don't say that lightly, but with Becky, yeah. But I love her. I love watching her expressions and just her craziness. And she just steals the scenes when she's in them. And just watching them. And then poor Sam, he's just smiling goofily and following along. And you're like, there's no way that he would willingly be doing this. But, you know, we all live in Becky's world.
And she hits Sam over the head with the waffle maker Dean gave them as a wedding present.
Yep.
So, well, one last lightning round. I think we only really have time here to maybe mention the title and maybe one sentence, and then we'll go into our wrap up. But there's just so many to pick from, and I'm going to say monster at the end of this book. You know, when Dean is like, "I'm sitting in a laundromat reading about us, sitting in a laundromat reading about us," or "Dude, I'm full frontal in here." You know, just them encountering themselves on the page is just really funny. Carol?
Ask Jeeves, with the dysfunctional soap opera rich family and the cougars going after Sam, and the whodunit mystery of it all is just, it's lovely and hilarious.
Lynn?
The Western episode with Dean being so excited to wear his serape and Sam riding off on that little horse looking way too big for it.
That poor horse. Elektra?
Shut up, Dr. Phil. Chet the Leviathan and Charisma Carpenter and James Marsters as 800,000-year-old witches that are married and bickering.
Janet?
In the All Hell Breaks Loose episodes, and Dean's sneaking out, and Bobby catches him, and he's like, "Do I look like a ditchable prom date to you?"
Lola?
I can't remember the name of the episode, but Castiel is on Earth and he becomes a hippie, and he has like pink glasses on. He's all like, still makes me laugh.
And Laurena?
Simon said with the, mind-bending twins, can I have your Impala? Can I have your car? Sure, man. Gets out, hands him the keys, watches him drive away. The van all painted on the side. And that's a good one.
It's a giant bomb.
Well, folks, I think we've proven we could keep going on this because even some of the most dire episodes still usually have a little tweak of humor. But we're out of time. So let's go around again and let everybody know where they can find you, starting with Laurena.
On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, Winchester Family Business is WinFam Business. And you can find us, and that we have the links to our website. For myself and for my Twilight work, I am at LSAngel2 on Twitter, Laurena Aker on Instagram, and Night Sky SPN on Facebook.
Okay, Janet.
Janet Walden-West, and that is my website, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, where I am usually at, and you can get a glimpse at my paranormal series that owes a lot to Sam and Dean.
Okay, Lola.
Oh, you Google me, you're gonna find either me or a bunch of dead old ladies that I'm related to. True story. So yeah, I'm more active on Twitter and Facebook, but I got Instagram. I got most of it. I never did Snapchat or TikTok, but I got the rest of it.
Okay, Elektra.
You can, Elektra Hammond, you can find me at untilmidnight.com, and that's where everything is.
Lynn.
You can find me on all social media at Fangasm SPN. My website is fangasmthebook.com, and you can find the books written by the actors of Supernatural at peacewhenyouaredone.com.
Carole.
I'm here as Carole Stokes on Facebook in the TFWNC group and here in Continual. On Twitter, I am true_firesign10, and all of my fiction is on AO3 under firesign10.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. All the social media is some variation of those names. As long as you spell them right, you'll find me. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook, and I'm on the Winchester Family Business blog. But mostly you can find me here at Continual running the Supernatural track. So thank you to all of our wonderful, wonderful panelists tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more Supernatural coming up soon. So we'll see you online.